Sergeant Ellis, did you finish that tasker? The colonel's waiting on it.
I'm working on it right now. I'll get it right to you.
Sergeant Ellis, where's your name tag?
Oh,
And why's your patch on the wrong side?
I think that happened when I was getting ready for work this morning. You know, I was rushing.
And why do you smell like alcohol? Is something wrong?
I took a shower this morning.
No, you smell like alcohol. Sergeant Ellis, I'm concerned about your well-being. Let's go see the EAPC.
EAPC, what's that?
The Employee Assistance Program Coordinator. Maybe he can help with your situation.
Listen, I don't need a dude in a suit and tie telling me how to live my life and how to conduct myself. I'm a grown man. I'm a Sergeant First Class United States Army. There's nothing he can tell me or do for me.
Sergeant Ellis, do it for me and your soldiers.
All right, man. I'll think about it. Hey, sir. How you doing?
Hello, how may I help you?
Hey, how you doing? To tell you the truth, sir, I was referred here by Sergeant First Class Reese. I don't know what I'm doing here. I mean, I'm a grown man. I mean, if I want to have a drink at the end of my work day or before I come to work in the morning, I should be able to. I don't see the issue with it.
Well, as a former NCO myself, I understand a lot of the stresses that are involved with work, with deployment, with balancing family life. And what I could do for you is I could refer you to different resources within your area, within a 30-mile radius of your home, and provide you with short-term counseling, 1 to 4 sessions.
Again, sir, I really don't think I have an issue. And I also don't want anybody to know I was in here because this can be detrimental to my career.
I understand that. I understand your concerns. And I also have biases with that as well. But however, everything that's said within these walls is confidential. But however, there are limits in confidentiality. If I believe that you are involved in self-harm to yourself or others, and any type of abuse or any illegal actions, I will have to report it to authorities. You understand that?
Yeah, I understand.
So let's find out, or why don't you tell me about what brought you in here?
Well, sir, frankly, I don't know why I'm sitting here. Sergeant First Class Reese referred me to you. She seems to believe I have an alcohol problem. That's absurd.
It's not a crime, son, but however, if it is affecting your work performance, then it is causing problems, and it's degrading from your ability to perform your mission. Do you feel that that's what's going on?
I don't think I have an issue, but I'm open for suggestions or help if I do have problems, sir.
Okay, son. So what I could do is I could look at different resources that are within the 30-mile radius of your home. I can provide a way for you to go see them. And then what I'll do is also provide you with 1 to 4 terms of short-term counseling. And then also I will be able to do a follow-up session with you to make sure that you're getting all the things that you need. Will that help? Terrific. Let's get started.
I've been really having a lot of issues at home, and
And a pleasant good morning to all of our viewers and listeners, and welcome to another edition of the program Addiction and Recovery. It's a wonderful Thursday morning. Happy Thursday to each and every one of you. So without further ado, let me join in welcoming the host of the program to Addiction and Recovery, Mr. Ramnaresh Dwarka. Sitaram, sir.
Jason, and it is indeed a privilege again to be on this program and to be able to share with our brothers and sisters, both locally and internationally, on a very important subject like this. And I also, again, want to thank the staff at Jagriti Television for selecting that video that we played just in the lead up to this program. I know that this program is aired on both on radio and television. It is also repeated again in the night at 10 o'clock. And it is also streaming live on Facebook, and it is recorded and also available and accessible on YouTube, so that it's available to our international audiences as well. Because the subject matter we are talking about here, Jason, is not insular to Trinidad and Tobago only. It is a problem that is worldwide in its reach, so that it doesn't matter where you drank, whether you drank in Trinidad or in Canada or in Iceland, you if you're predisposed to alcoholism, it's going to happen. It's just a question of time. Alcoholism has now been accepted as a disease worldwide in most of the developed world, and it is a disease of denial, as we saw in the video. You know, obviously the guy up to the last point in time, he was still saying that he didn't understand why he was referred there because of the stigma associated with alcoholism and drug addiction. You know, a lot of people, we have been socialized, Jason. You know, from small, you remember when your parents would say, Jason, you're old enough to go and get dressed, you know. You're old enough to go and take your bath. You're old enough now to do this and do that. So we have been socialized with the whole purpose of being self-sufficient and independent, so that all through life, there's always that struggle in all of our minds. You know, if confronted with a problem, Jason, we would like to fix it ourselves. And that is, we feel good that we could be self-sufficient and we don't have to be dependent on anyone. However, those of us who now move from social drinking to uncontrollable drinking, compulsive drinking, it happens overnight, as we say. The person who is drinking or using drugs, they would have heard about it, you know, they would have seen other people drink and reaching to the position of vagrancy. But we all tell ourselves, you know, Jason, that look, that will never happen to me. I am not so foolish. I am not so weak. And indeed, I speak about this in the first person because I myself thought so. And for years, even when I knew I had a problem with alcohol, I tried every method known to me to try to fix the problem, because it is something that erodes at your self-esteem. And the people who are close to you, your brothers and sisters, your parents in particular, your close friends and relatives, who would have seen you before you started drinking or in your early days of drinking, would see the transition, the change that has come over you. You know, a man who used to be very clean and meticulous and organized and particular about his health and the way he comported himself, you know, and the way he dressed and the places he would go and the way he would behave. And they would see all of that changing over time. He starts changing his friends. He starts changing the activities he engages in. Because as drinking progresses in your life, you know, Jason, you know, I could speak again about my own experience. You know, you don't really care to go to the PTA meeting or the temple on Sunday morning, because Saturday night was a very heavy session of drinking. Sunday morning, you're still smelling of it and you're still in remorse and you're having the withdrawal symptoms. So you normally, where you would go to the temple on a Sunday morning, you don't want to go again. And then you will not be going to the PTA meeting, and you will not going to the Ramayana Yags, and you will not be going to the church and to the temple and the mosque. And eventually, once there's no alcohol there, you would have no desire to go to those places without realizing it. And this has serious implications later on for people like myself who are in the helping professions, because the person who reaches to chronic alcoholism, one, he has become physically dependent on it, in that his body cannot function normally without a certain level of alcohol in his system. Without the alcohol, what would happen? He is unable to sleep properly. He has no appetite. He becomes depressed. He becomes very irritable. He becomes very anxious and nervous, heart palpitating. All of those things happen when the person who has become physically dependent on alcohol, when he stops. These are called classic withdrawal symptoms. It can even be worse. Some people become impotent. Some people they start hallucinating and start seeing and hearing things that are not there. It is called delirium tremens. So that a person who is trying, a person who is not educated in this field, who is unaware of all of these things, and with all good intentions, parents and siblings and pundits and preachers and, community leaders as well would like to speak to this person and try, even people in recovery will try to help this person. But once a person has reached to the position of hallucinating and all of that, experiencing delirium tremens, especially if they are over age 40, they need to be detoxed under supervision so that even a person outside who do not understand these things, trying to help, you are trying to help the person, but you can really put them at risk, because a person who is experiencing delirium tremens, a lot of times they have nightmarish experiences. They see like people are coming, even though they are wide awake, they are hallucinating and they're seeing like people are coming to harm them. And I actually was in a bus going to an excursion to Granville at one time when I saw a gentleman from the community who was in the bus, jumped out of the bus window while the bus was still in motion, and he could have died. And he ran into a cocoa estate, and he was trying to hide himself climb up a cocoa tree and trying to hide himself. And he was protesting when the men in the bus ran and they found him. He was telling them that, look, people are coming to kill me. It is so serious, and a lot of people in that state have been known to suffer cardiac arrest. The heart gives away and they can die. So it is for this reason it is important that program like this, we educate our population, because even though a lot of people might have the intention to help, there are some instances where a person will need professional help. So coming back to the video we saw earlier on, you saw the guy eventually begrudgingly decides, well, look, because his job is at stake. So he decides to go to the employee, to the resources available in his community. And I want to say, in Trinidad and Tobago, we have come a long way. We do have employee assistance programs. In fact, I have for many years been an employee assistant consultant. I have been seeing workers from the University of the West Indies. I've been seeing workers from the Port Authority. I used to see workers from ISPAT. All of these were referred by the Employee Assistance Program. And it is, I suppose, because I have a very small office that is hidden away, and is very confidential, so that a lot of people don't feel it very conspicuous to come to see me, because a lot of people will not know that you are going for counseling. You notice the guy telling the person in the office, listen, I don't want anyone to know that I came to see you. Because it is true that there's a lot of people out there, in spite of the programs we have been doing, Jason, over all these years, I have been doing these programs on various media houses, and since the inception of Jagriti TV, in spite of all of this, there's still a lot of misinformation out there. And there's a lot of people who still hold serious bias and prejudice against people who are drinkers and drug users. Because even a lot of people who should know better, I've heard them say, look, no one hold you down and put this drink in your mouth, So there's very little sympathy for the alcoholic, not realizing that when an alcoholic reaches to the point of compulsive drinking, he's unable to help himself. A lot of people outside, they will say to the alcoholic now that, look, you just have to make up your mind. Well, yes, you have to make up your mind, but it takes much more than making up your mind, because the alcoholic would have failed so many times on his own that he don't have any confidence that he's able to do this anymore. So it takes a lot of encouragement and reassurance. An alcoholic who has become dependent on alcohol. And when I say alcoholic, I'm also including people who are marijuana addicts and cocaine addicts and all the other addictions, especially people who have become dependent on prescription pills, that is psychotropic drugs like sleeping pills and tranquilizers and all of those. You can become dependent on prescription pills, even painkillers. And those are even more difficult to get off from, Jason. So it's not only alcohol we're talking about here, but once you've become dependent on these physically, like I said earlier on, when you stop, the next day there are some people who can't even sign their name. Their hands are shaking so much, they can't function. You understand? And they become depressed. Some become very anxious. Some become very irritable. They develop what is called a short fuse. Every little thing, at the drop of a pin, they are angry and upset. You understand? So it is critical that the population understand that. And I must say that, our national councils in Trinidad and the Ministry of Health has been doing quite a bit. Alcoholics Anonymous in particular, and this program have been doing a lot to educate our brothers and sisters so that you understand alcoholism is a disease just like diabetes, just like hypertension. It is not caused by a virus, but it is caused by a lifestyle, and it can be fixed. It means changing your lifestyle. But that is easier said than done. So that we are fortunate in Trinidad that we have resources available. There's a Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Center at Cora Hospital that has a clinic every Thursday, that anyone in Trinidad and Tobago who has a problem with alcohol or drug addiction, they can go there on a Thursday at 8 a.m. in the morning. And if you have a letter of referral, it helps. But even without a letter of referral, you will not be turned away. You will be seen, an assessment and evaluation is going to be done, and a determination is going to be made as to what is the best treatment plan for you. There are in-house treatment plans, there are outpatient treatment plans, and I also like to say that there are community resources in Trinidad. There's Alcoholics Anonymous meetings almost in every community. In the community in which I live here, Felicity, there are 5 AA groups that meet on Wednesday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday evening, and Monday night, 5 days. And now we also have online AA meetings in Trinidad. There's the Northern Intergroup that has an online meeting every evening at 7 p.m. There is also another group that has recently been named, that is the Circle of Daily Reflection online AA group that meets every evening at 7 p.m. as well. These meetings run for an hour and a half, and they can be accessed from anywhere in the world. Anyone interested in joining these meetings can get in touch with me after the program at 868-671-3040, and I would be only happy to give them the information, the ID and the password. And all they have to do is to download the Zoom app. And once you have internet or data, no matter where you are in Trinidad and Tobago, up the Caribbean, or in the world, I know that there are people from all over the world who attend these online meetings in Trinidad, and Trinidadians who attend meetings in Canada and the United States, and as far away as New Zealand. So the resources are there. So coming back to the video, we also have companies in Trinidad. The Ministry of Education, there's health consultants, there are many, many companies. I know the banking sector also have employee assistance programs. Usually these are housed in their human resource department, and they are done in a very confidential manner. Some provide in-house counseling services, that is within the organization itself. And there are a lot of them choose outhouse, meaning that they have contractors that provide this service. And a lot of people I know, workers, choose to go to contractors like myself. They will choose to come because it is, to their mind, one way of ensuring that their colleagues and their own department is unaware of where they are going and what they're doing. And I must say that in all these settings, and I can speak in my case in particular, and where I've worked before, is that whatever is said is totally confidential. Professionals like myself, in my training, Jason, there are certain principles in counseling and social work. One of the principles is that the client must be given the assurance of confidentiality, that what they are saying is never going to leave the room. And counselors who are unable to do that should not even get into this profession, because that is the only way you can give the person the opportunity and you can give them the reassurance that what they are going to be saying is never going to leave the room. It's going to stay between both of you. That is critical, because every counselor, if you're going to work with alcoholics and drug addicts in particular, because of the stigma associated with alcoholism and drug addiction, these are people who really don't want to speak to anyone, especially a stranger, about what has been happening with them. So it takes a lot of reassurance, building what is called rapport. That is, you develop a relationship with the person so that they trust you enough to be able to open up and ventilate and speak to you about the reasons underlying their drinking. Because drinking is only one of the symptoms of the disease alcoholism, Jason. There are other symptoms. And if the counselor is unaware of these things and is not familiar with this subject and unable to help the client, the alcoholic or the drug addict sitting across the desk from him, help them to develop insight, to understand how their other behavior, their attitude, their selfishness, their self-centeredness, their self-esteem needs, their poor coping skills, their inability to postpone gratification, their desire to procrastinate all the time, their attitude to life, generally, their aggressive nature, how all of these things, their inability to be honest, these are all other symptoms of this disease, Jason. And if they are unable to make connection between how these other symptoms predispose them to alcoholism, perpetuated their drug use, and continue to, as I said, precipitated their drug use and now perpetuating their drug use, they will never be able to deal with it. You have to help them to move to what is called consequential thinking. That is, they are able to see the relationship between their drug use and their behavior, how they caused this problem to themselves, helping them to make the connections. Because a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts have a tendency, for the longest while to blame others and not take responsibility. Because of the nature, the stigma associated, it is usually easier to blame others for the alcoholic's problem. So the counselor, the helping person there must be able to help the person make the connections. It is called building insight. It is only when an alcoholic or drug addict develops insight, that is, they are able to see how their drinking and drug use has brought them to where they are, then and only then they are prepared to do something about it. So coming back to the video, hopefully this guy will engage the services of the Employee Assistance Program, will be helped to develop insight. And then coming back to our local situation here, there are treatment facilities available. There's the public treatment facilities at Cora Hospital, Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Center. But there are also private treatment facilities like New Life Ministries, Heal House in Central Trinidad. There's Rebirth House in North, And there's Serenity Place in South Trinidad. There's also the Women's Center at Santa Flora that is managed by the New Life Ministries. And then we have a proliferation of Alcoholics Anonymous groups in Trinidad, and indeed wherever this broadcast is heard and people are accessing this program online or YouTube, you will find in your communities. Alcoholics Anonymous is a worldwide fellowship now that could be found in 189 countries of the world the last time I checked, so that even in your community, there may have been an AA group. And you know, strange enough, Jason, alcoholics might have lived in a community for years, drinking for years, and be totally oblivious that there's an AA meeting right there in the school next door within walking distance. You understand? Because their interest has never been in recovery. You don't find something unless you're really looking for it most of the time, you know. In fact, a lot of alcoholics or drug addicts will shy away from these places. Indeed, I had a similar experience yesterday when I visited a friend, and he has a brother who is using alcohol heavily, and he suspects he might be alcoholic. And so the guy came and I started to talk to him, and immediately, once he sensed I was going to talk about his drinking, he said, wait. I have a pot on the fire. I must go and turn off the stove, you know, and I'll be back in a minute. He has not come back since then because, and I understand, because, you know, a lot of people, they don't know that they could stop. They have become so dependent on it, and the amount of times that they have tried to stop on their own and went into the withdrawal symptoms that are horrible, that are painful, that are stressful, they don't even want to risk it, the thought of stopping again. And I'm saying this so that family members, people in the helping profession, people, community leaders, you know, need to understand this whole question of withdrawal, because immediately even family members get disgusted with an alcoholic because they feel, look, how many times we have spoken to you. Look how many times you got yourself in an accident. You've lost your job. Your family is estranged from you. Look at your condition, how you are, and how you can't seem to understand. A man who went to university and college and so brilliant, you know, how you can't understand and see what's happening to you, you know. And the only conclusion they come is that you're hardened, as we say in Trinidad, or you're just wicked, and you're mean, and you're inconsiderate of other people. And of course, to add good measure, you might have cussed them up a few times when they try to talk to you. So that a lot of times, by the time a person reaches to me or my office, you know, a lot of times they have lost the support of all their family and friends. You know, indeed, this morning, a gentleman who was doing well 2 days ago, and I suspect might have relapsed, and who was supposed to be here this morning, and he's not here. He's called to say, look, I'll call you and talk about it next time, because, and I understand, and I want to let them know, you know, as a counselor, you can't get upset with your clients, you know. No, you can't. The other principle, one is confidentiality, as I said. The other is controlled emotional involvement. You cannot like or dislike your patient. You know, sometimes counselors without experience, they feel so good that their client is doing so well, you know, that they become attached to them and keep them coming because they feel good that they're seeing the progress. But you can't take a person off alcohol, dependence on alcohol and dependence on drugs, and then make them become dependent on you. Then you are creating a bigger problem for yourself and for the patient, because eventually when you are not around, you will not be able to wean them off if they become too dependent on you. So that I'm speaking to all those people who are in recovery as well. You don't want to become dependent. Well, let me correct myself. There are good dependents and there are bad dependents, if you want to call it that. There are people who have stopped drinking and now become dependent on AA, which is not a bad thing. There are some people who use music, they use self-development. Now, to substitute for their drinking and drug use. And those are good substitutions. But you don't want to stop drinking and using drugs, and then you pick up gambling or womanizing or one of those other habits that can be detrimental to yourself. You know, there's a saying, Jason, that nature doesn't like a vacuum. And I've heard an old timer once suggest that, look, if you want to understand that concept, go to the back of your house if you have a little space and dig a hole in the ground and leave it. And go back a few years later, and you would most likely find that the hole is filled up with a lot of debris and garbage and all kind of things. So too, for people who have stopped drinking, you know, drinking and drug use takes a lot of time, you know, Jason. And when you stop suddenly, and I had a patient not 2 days, yesterday, up to yesterday, telling me, you know, now that I stopped drinking, I have nothing to do. And I can't deal with the boredom of sitting home and staying home and have nothing to do. And I understand that totally. Because, you know, when we were small, Jason, you would have probably heard this saying that an idle brain is the devil workshop. And in recovery circles, a lot of people will tell you that for an alcoholic is the worst company for an alcoholic is himself, you know, to be by himself. Because what will happen, eventually you start, you know, you're missing out on what you thought was fun and the camaraderie and the stimulation outside. And you can easily sit by yourself, start feeling sorry for yourself. You know, self-pity is one of those serious situations that can lead you right back to a relapse. That is, you know, and a person put it jocularly that, look, you know, you sit down there and you're saying, poor me, because you're feeling sorry for yourself. And next thing you'll say, pour me a drink. And you know what will happen? When you pour yourself a drink, you go right back. And therein lies a fallacy. A lot of people who stayed sober for a few days, you know, because I even heard a parent telling the son, who's a few days in recovery, well, look, you know, you could take 1 or 2 beers and stop. Not realizing for a social drinker, that is normal. You can take 1 and 2 or 3 beers and stop and put it down, or even leave half in the pint and walk away and go about your business. But an alcoholic cannot do that. Once you have crossed that imaginary borderline from social drinking to compulsive drinking, there's no going back. Once you may not drink for days or months or years, but once you take that first drink, it starts a chemical reaction inside of you, because there's physical dependence I referred to earlier on. There's chemical dependence. There's psychological dependence as well on alcohol and drugs. So that any treatment that is plan that is developed has to attend to all the types of dependence, so that the person who has become chemically dependent on alcohol, a few drops of alcohol in a barrel of water can trigger that craving. So even things like shandy and all of those that people will think is very, you know, I mean, innocent, it is very mild. There's about 1 or 2% alcohol in it. That is dangerous, deadly for an alcoholic who is in recovery. Because once he takes any amount of alcohol, it would start a chemical reaction in him. Then there's the psychological dependence for people, you know, who want to go and drink non-alcoholic wine and non-alcoholic this and that. The psychological dependence can also trigger, because psychologically you have been dependent and you're actually not taking the alcohol itself, but you're satisfying the psychological need by taking the non-alcoholic wine. So as a person in recovery, I don't even want a drop of alcohol in, you know, and there are things like bitters that people don't realize is laced with alcohol, and they pour it very liberally in their juice and in the sorrel, and they, you know, we Trinidadians and Caribbean people, we have all kinds of mixtures that we put, you know, and if we put the wine in the black cake and all of that. So some people drinking things and getting the craving, and some people eating. You might eat a piece of cake and next thing you gone high, and with a craving for a drink of alcohol. And as I say this, there's also those people who are mixing marijuana in cake and making wine and all of that, and tinctures and so on. That is, and biscuits, they're baking biscuits with cocaine in it and giving it to kids to entice them to become dependent. We have had instances of that in Trinidad where people position themselves near schools and selling marijuana cakes and children getting high. And the law need to pay attention to these things, and these people need to be put away. You understand? So coming back again to the whole question, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of misconception. A lot of people believe the guy who is drinking is just, immoral. For hundreds of years, it was thought that, alcoholics, drunks were people who were immoral. And in some parts of the world, there's still that belief that it's a moral issue, that, you're just ungodly. And that's why you're drinking and behaving like that, because device is the devil. It is a device of the devil. Well, yes, there's some truth in that, because a lot of people in recovery will tell you, without God's help, you were not able to remove that obsession. It is believed so in Alcoholics Anonymous that it's but for the grace of God that you're really able to stay sober. And I have no problem with that, because I do believe in God as well. I do believe God can work miracles, but I also believe that you pray to God as though everything depends on God, Jason, but you have to work as though everything depends on you. God is not going to come to anybody and take the glass away from your hand, or he's going to hold you and drag you back from the bar and say, don't go there. No, you have to make the effort. You understand? So for all those people who are listening, I want to, first thing, you have to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself. And I want to say, if you have a family history of alcoholism or drug addiction, science has proven that you could have a genetic predisposition. That is to say, if your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather on your father's side or your mother's side was alcoholic or drug addict, you could have inherited the genes from them that will predispose you to alcoholism or drug addiction. The same way we inherit, our height, our complexion, our ethnicity, whether our hair is going to be straight or curly, all of those things, the same way we inherit the genes that will predispose us to alcoholism or drug addiction. So if you have a history in your family of people who are heavy drinkers or alcoholics, then you have to be especially careful, because the person who is genetically predisposed, Jason, you'll find that the first day they go and drink, they have a tendency to want to drink to get drunk, because it's already there. But this is not something that you could only inherit genetically. This is also a disease that you could learn. That with time, if you keep drinking, you develop tolerance. And from your tolerance, you will eventually slip into dependence. Because so too with prescription pills and psychotropic drugs, people develop dependence. So that this is something you could be born with, or you could also become. So if you listening out there or viewing this program, whether on social media or wherever, and as I said, you have a history in your family of alcoholism, or you have been drinking or using drugs in spite of the fact that it is causing problems in your life. Now, that is one of the signature ways of realizing that you have crossed from social drinking into compulsive alcoholism or drug addiction, is the fact that you have insight. You realize it is causing problems in your life, and you still continue to use it. You understand? The social drinker could take 1, 2, 3 drinks, go about his business. But as soon as if he thinks it is causing problems, health problems, financial problems, motor vehicular problems, breathalyzer problems, social problems, marital problems, he's going to stop. But if you are drinking and it is causing any of those problems, you are aware of it and you still continue to drink, then clearly you are alcoholic. Because, there are people who are allergic to shellfish and shrimps and things in several kinds of food stuff. Some people are even allergic to, to, um, to nuts. I know some people, the groundnuts, they call it. And once you realize it is causing problem, it causing an allergy, then you avoid eating or drinking those things. So ask yourself, although you know it is causing financial problems, it is causing problems with the family, causing problems on the job, you have had problems with the law, you're getting into fights, you're getting sick, you have to go for sick leave, you're using up all your sick leave before the year is finished because you are hungover from the night before, the weekend before. If all of these things are happening, if you have tried to stop and you're still going back to drink, it means you have become dependent. And I want to let you know that help is available. All you have to do, you can call me after the program, you can get in touch with me. If you are abroad, if wherever in the world you are listening to this program, there are resources available. And I could direct you to those resources. In fact, I do see patients myself and I've counseled thousands of people, not only for alcohol and drug addiction, but for cigarettes. There are people who have become dependent on prescription pills, sleeping pills, and tranquilizers, and all of that. I've even had to help people who are in the medical profession, people who are working in the health services, because they have access to it, they know what it can do, and they start using it at first for utilitarian purposes, just to help them to sleep and relax and whatever. And eventually they've become dependent, and I want to make, I know time is running out, but maybe in the next program, I want to speak a little more in detail about these things, people who have become dependent on psychotropic drugs, because there's a big problem worldwide, and indeed in Trinidad, on this. People are becoming dependent on painkillers, the little paracetamols and all of that as well. And a lot of people have become dependent, of course, and are told that, look, you'll have to use these pills like the ones for hypertension and diabetes. When they're prescribed, and once you get on these things, it seems to most people, and even people in the medical profession, that you'll have to take it for the rest of your life. But diabetes and hypertension, these are not caused by bacteria or viruses. These are lifestyle illnesses, just like alcoholism and drug addiction. These are lifestyle illness. And anything that is a lifestyle illness can be corrected by lifestyle changes. However, let me stop to say, if you have reached a chronic stage now, sometimes your body really cannot regenerate, then you have to continue to use it. Otherwise, you can be fatal. So I am not for a moment here going to criticize or suggest to anyone that they should stop taking the medication as prescribed by their doctors and so on. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying in consultation with your doctor, you should work out a plan how to let them help you to wean yourself off these drugs, because eventually you develop tolerance and the drugs don't work anymore. And this is why I'm seeing a lot of people who are on medication for diabetes and hypertension, eventually developing tolerance and now suffering severe consequences. So that you need to also not only, we all like shortcuts, Jason. It's the same reason, the same guy who is feeling a little bit under the weather and depressed, and he's frustrated and stressed out, or disappointed about something, find that he could go and take a drink, and in a few minutes changes his mood, because another word for these drugs is mood altering substances. Yes, they change your mood, but it comes with a price tag, because you can be starting a journey in a direction that it can only lead you to death and destruction. You know, there are only three places eventually that drug addiction will take you, Jason, if you stay with it. And that is, you'd either go to prison, you'd either go to the mental hospital, or you'd finally end up in some cemetery or cremation site. And these are not places that any one of us would wish for ourselves or for our loved ones. So I'm saying that help is available. Please, you know, all it takes is an honest evaluation of yourself. If alcohol or drugs is causing problems in your life, all you have to do is to reach out to us. I know a lot of people call the radio station, the television station, and you all at the station have been very kind to give them the information, to give my number as well. And a lot of people have been calling as a result of this program. In fact, let me say this as well. I've been asked to speak at the Hindu Women's Organization in August, and it has come out of as a result of this program. All these people look at the television, they look at this station, and they're impressed by the work that we are doing here. And I really would like to commend the organization for that initiative that they are doing during the month of August. I also want to suggest to organizations out there, churches, temples, mosques, any group. I look forward. I am very passionate about assisting groups like that. If they wish for me to come and speak to their audiences on alcoholism or drug addiction, I would be only too happy to do that. If, of course, you want to speak to me or chat with me online, I will accommodate it so far as is possible. And I want to also, again, compliment the Mahasabha of Trinidad and Tobago for giving this free airtime as a community service to our brothers and sisters in Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to let you know, Jason, it is not only people of the East Indian community or Hindu faith that listen to this program, but it is appreciated across the board by all ethnicities and people of all religious persuasions here worldwide, because alcoholism does not discriminate, whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, East Indian, African, or wherever, rich, poor, or indifferent. Once you use it, it levels the playing field for everyone. You understand? So I want to say thank you again for having me on the program, and to let our listeners and brothers and sisters know that this program will be posted on my channel on YouTube. The name is Ram Naresh Dwarika. That's all you have to do. Put in my name, and you will see all the programs that we have been doing lately coming up. And if you have questions from listening to any of these programs, you can call me at 671-3040, and I'll be quite happy to discuss it with you. So thank you again, Jason.
Always thank you for always taking the time to do this program. And like Mr. Dwarka said, help is available and resources are available right through the country online. All it takes is that first step. So join us next Tuesday for another edition of the program, Addiction and Recovery. Until then, Sitaram.